You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
I'm host Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There are ladies things that makes official. Welcome to the show. As always, for 16 years and 2,500 episodes, 2,600 episodes actually, we bring in the Chris Voss Show because we love bringing smart, bright-minded people to the show for you to enjoy and change your life and improve the quality of it. Refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTok, and all those other crazy places that we have on the show. We're going to be talking to a wonderful young lady today about her book called Little Miracles of Katrina. It is a true life memoir of faith and resistance after the Hurricane Katrina that inspired her new children's book as well, called Miracle of the Meow. I love it. So we're going to be talking with Maria Despenza today on the show. We're going to get into it with her. Welcome to the show, Maria. How are you?
I'm well, and thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
Thank you for coming. Give us your .coms. Where do you want people to find out more about you on the interwebs?
Oh, thank you. It's mvdespenza.com.
And then I believe that's the author name that you use on the web when people want to search for it, right?
Yes. Oh,
MV.
I'm sorry. It's books by. I'm a little nervous. Books by mvdespenza.com.
There we go. So give us a 30,000 overview of what's inside this book.
Okay. There were events that occurred in the days and weeks following Katrina that if any one of them had happened by themselves, you would say, oh, right place, right time, or luck of the draw. But over a period of weeks, it seemed like we were getting through places that we shouldn't have. Things were happening right at the exact moment when it came to rescuing people that I can only define as divine intervention. And it's not miracles like turning wine to water, but it was like everything was in place in such a way that it could only be described as just a little miracle that we got through in different places, that certain things occurred the way they did. And as I've shared these stories with people over the years, they've really said, you really need to write a book about this, because it really does bring a sense of calm and peace and hope after everything that we went through in those days.
There you go. So where were you in Katrina? Were you living there, I guess, in New Orleans area? Or, well, it did go out into like Baton Rouge and different things, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So tell us where you were living and set the scene for us in the scenario, kind of refresh people on maybe, these new Gen Zers, they're not up on some of this old technology of news.
I was living in New Orleans, and I was fortunate. I was one of the people that was able to leave 2 days ahead of time and had some place to go. The thing about Katrina, it caught everybody off guard because Katrina was a Category 1 headed toward Florida. And generally when a hurricane hits landfall, it drops by one category. So we thought that it would just turn to a tropical storm. So the people in Mississippi and Louisiana, we were praying for the people in Florida, but we had no idea that Katrina would hit Florida and do a lot of damage for a Cat 1. But then she would go back into the Gulf and pick up steam again and pick up those warm waters and then head east toward us. Yeah. So the usual types of preparation that we could have done, we were unable to do. And it was just a mad dash for people in the city. So a lot of people found themselves stranded there, unable to get out.
Yeah, they couldn't. I remember seeing the traffic trying to get out of there. at the last minute, hey, everyone should run. And you had a lot of people that were poor that didn't have resources. Maybe they used public transportation and different things. And so a lot of them just hunkered down.
Yes.
And I guess, you guys had a lot of storms before, but this one was completely different, especially how it attacked the barrier walls that protected the city and the levee walls or whatever they call them.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've done your homework on this.
Well, I remember watching it.
Yeah.
It was, it was kind of, we were all, we were watching these people trapped in the Superdome. Is that
Yes.
what it was? Yeah. The
Yeah.
Superdome. And you would see these images and these people are just distraught. And you're like, this is America? What is going on? And you're hearing about, physical assaults, sexual assaults in the Superdome. You're hearing about, people are, it's literally like Armageddon. People are starting to lose it and act out in behavior that's survival mode sort of stuff. So you're out of that area when the storm hits. What happens next for you?
Well, about 3 days after the storm, and of course, in the beginning, Katrina came and went overnight, did a lot of destruction, and everybody walked out the next day, and it's like, whoo, we got past that. But what no one knew at the time was that several levees had broken and that the water was steadily making its way into the city. So for that one day, and there were people in the French Quarter celebrating, and I thought I would be going home in a couple of days. Wow. And then all of a sudden, the reality came that the city flooded up to 12 feet in some areas with water. And so what happened was I was out living in a little city called Belrose with my husband's family. And one set of his relatives were stuck in the Superdome. And then another set were stuck in the convention center.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And through no fault of their own, the people in the Superdome had checked into a hotel, again, thinking they would be fine. But then everyone in the hotels, including tourists, they were all asked to leave. They had nowhere to go.
Wow.
And then the other couple, the lady was actually a radiologist at Baptist Hospital. And so she stayed to be with the patients. And then when it looked like the hospital was going to flood, they started moving people out, and then they moved them to the convention center. Yeah. And so I was asked to, on 2 different occasions, to go along with other family members to pick them up. And that's kind of where some of the miracles kind of came in, because it was like we weren't supposed to get through, and somehow we did. And then we did again. And then there were 3 other instances that happened along the way. And I started saying to these guys, it's like, you guys, how are we getting through? How is this happening? And then at some point I said, it's like Little Miracles. And then from there, the name just kind of stuck. So, yeah.
There you go. There you go. What was the story in the book? Maybe you want to share with us of one of your favorite stories that maybe you tell in the book, or examples. Can you give us a little tease out on that?
Yes. The one for the kitty cat, I'm going to hold off on that one, because I still to this day, 20 years later, get very emotional. But the couple that we rescued from the convention center, it was my husband's cousin Angela and I. We went together to pick this couple up, and somehow, some way, they were at the convention center. They met this lovely young lady, and she said that her husband was on the ship, the Iwo Jima, which was in Algiers, which is just across the Mississippi River Bridge in a city called Algiers. And whenever anybody came to the convention center, because everybody was so desperate for water and food and baby formula, people would just flock onto any incoming vehicles whatsoever. So somehow, even with no phones, we think she might have been an angel. We're just not sure. This young lady, she got her husband to come from the ship to pick her up, but he also picked up Mr. and Mrs. Moran because they had befriended her, and she was by herself, and she was a tall, thin Caucasian girl, very pretty. And then they took her, then they all went over to the ship. And then Angela and I drove from Belrose to pick them up. But when we were in line, there were probably 20 or 30 cars ahead of us. I mean, they were turning everybody back, just turning everybody back that was not a government official, not wildlife and fisheries, not National Guard. And I said, oh my God, Angie. And we'd already driven about 70 miles or so, maybe 50 miles, I can't remember. But I said, oh my God, Angie, they're so going to turn us back. I said, but we're this far. And when she put the window down, and I was practicing, is it Iwo Jima or Iwo Jima? Because I wanted to get it right. And by the time she put the window down, I said, hello, we are. And before I could even finish, he said, proceed. And Angie just kind of said this, Angie, go, Angie, go. And then when we pulled away, it's like, oh my God, how did we get through? I mean, we didn't have any kind of government ID, anything. I didn't even get to tell him where we were going. And somehow, some way, he just said, proceed. And so we were just sort of fascinated by that. But then when we picked up the Morans and we brought them back to Belrose, they were telling us all about this young lady. And then it kind of dawned on them. It was like, how did she get in touch with her husband when the phones were down? All of the cell phones were down. How did that happen? So that was the first miracle in the book. But then I said, did you get her phone number? And Mrs. Moran said, oh yeah, absolutely did. But when she went in her purse, which was very organized, the number wasn't there. So, it's just kind of, it's like you could say, okay, it's coincidence, this, that, and the other. But on the other hand, you could say there was some divine intervention to get them out of there, because it was just such a horrible place to be. So anyway.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the second book you have that came out of the first. I believe you pulled a chapter. Talk to us about what the title is there and what's inside that.
Okay, so I'm a crazy cat lady. I have 3. I love my babies. And when I was writing the book, I had visions of going to like Children's Hospital. I worked there when I was very young. And I've always kind of worked with children doing community types of things. And I thought, oh, how nice it would be for these kids with cancer that I could go there and read them stories about little miracles to give them hope and everything that they're going through. But then, as it came closer to the end of the book, I was like, oh my God, this is too adult for kids. And the chapters are longer. And I said, I don't think they can relate to that. And I thought, well, but I want to do something. So chapter 7 involves a kitty cat. And I said, you know what, I'm going to make this a children's book. So I've never written a children's book in my life. So I did some research on like illustrations and layouts and that kind of thing. And so I've been in the process of putting that book together. It will be ready to go to press in about 2 weeks. And part of the miracle in that chapter was hearing just a very simple meow. And so I said, I'm going to call this one The Miracle of the Meow. And I'm excited about Little Miracles of Katrina, but I swear I am so excited about Miracle of the Meow. So
can you give us an overview of maybe a story that's out of it, or is there a singular story or multiple stories?
It's a singular story. There was this cat that was a stray that when I was packing my 3 to go, I would feed her, but she would never let me touch her. And this one time I was outside sitting on I had a bench out in front of my house and she jumped on me and I said, oh, she's trying to like not be feral, but she dug her claws into my jeans. And then when I went to move, she was like, so I was like, oh, no. So my husband came out and I said, you got to get this cat off me. So he jingled his keys and she jumped down. So she wasn't a cat that I could pick up and take with me. So when I was leaving, I said, I'll be back in 2 days. I've left you all kinds of food and here's some water. You'll be fine. Had no idea it would be 6 weeks. And so anyway, this story kind of goes from there.
This was the cat that you end up leaving this cat behind when you went to out of town to
Yes.
escape the
Yes.
hurricane?
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
So it was left behind. So it was there during the whole time, the 6 weeks you were gone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's a story about you find out what happens to the cat when you come back.
Yeah.
Ah, there
Yeah.
you go. There you
Yeah.
go. There you go. Well, hopefully it ends well, but you got to buy the books to find out, folks. That's the key. Why we only tease out parts of the book. So there you go. What an interesting experience. Had you ever experienced anything like that in your life before that? Any sort of catastrophe like that?
I am telling my age, but I was around for Hurricane Betsy and Hurricane Camille. And my aunt had a dog. She lived in the lower Ninth Ward, which is really below sea level as opposed to certain other areas of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a dog named Rusty. And she was a tiny little thing, like 4'11" or something, mean as hell. But anyway, she was. Her name was Eva, and her own son called her Aunt Evil. Okay, so
Aunt Evil, wow.
Aunt Evil, but actually she had a sweet side to her. But she and her dog Rusty decided to ride it out because that was a very common thing to do back in those days. And her area really flooded, and somehow, some way, Rusty got out, and she was just in a panic, poor thing. And then when they were going around, they were going in canoes or kayaks, I guess, to pick up people that had remained, and they picked her up, and they had probably been, rowing.
You there? Let's see here. Are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, we had a bit of glitch out there on the internet, I guess. So you said we just missed a second. So go ahead.
Okay, so basically, she thought she had lost her dog, and then when she was in the kayak or the canoe, as they were taking her to safety, they saw Rusty floating on a mattress. And one of the guys, God bless him, he got out and walked over there and grabbed, through that water and mud, and grabbed him and brought him to safety. So, yeah, but we had, when I was a little girl, it was common that our house would flood. My grandmother's house would flood, but only by 2 or 3 inches, which usually involved just, changing out the carpet and maybe getting rid of some things, shoes that were in the closet on the floor, but nothing like Katrina. I mean, it just in my life, just nothing like that. And my house, we had two floors. And so we had 38 inches of water in our home. And, but then part of the roof blew off. So even though the second floor was relatively okay, it wasn't 100%. But the thing that really gets me about Katrina is just how it uprooted everybody's lives. Even people like me. It was more than the materials. It was more than having to replace furniture. And I'll just give an example. My sister and I are like ridiculously close. And we lived about 2 miles away, and we both love to cook, although she's a much better cook than I'll ever be. But like, she might make something, she'd call and say, Nessa, you got to come over here and try this. And I'm like, girl, I'm on my way. And then, like, I might make my little crawfish pies and say, Vicki, come get some pies. And so I missed that. And I think so many people that had that kind of life before Katrina, many people have moved out to different areas, like you said, Baton Rouge, Gonzales, Prairieville. I live in Mandeville. We've all kind of spread out a little bit. And so we'll never have that back the way that we had it, pre-Katrina.
Bit of innocence lost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why they call it innocence lost. It's an old line from Billy Joel. Past isn't always as good as it seems, but the future, I don't know. 1,392 people died, according to Google here. So take it up with them if you don't like the number. Estimated were to have died during Katrina. That's a hell of a disaster for an American disaster for human or American lives, I think. Yes. I don't know a comparative scale. I have to Google around, but I mean, it's indelibly stuck in my brain for the horrific images we were having to see. You'd see, they'd have a helicopter flying over the Superdome,
Yes.
and
Oops.
they you would see people fighting over stuff like maybe food or supplies or some. They're just
Mhm.
fighting for survival, and
Yeah.
they've been trapped in that city for what was it, like a week before FEMA got there or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it was several days.
Yeah, and and then Bush hadn't even bothered flying out to it. Like a lot of
No.
times, they do that flyover thing,
Mhm.
and you just heard of it just getting crazy. I had friends that were in the military that said that the drug dealers and stuff tried to take over the central city. It was just gangs and breaking into shit, and of course people are in survival mode. The most haunting things was watching people trapped on rooftops in the Ninth Ward
Yes.
and realizing that there were people that were inside those buildings that had probably drowned. They couldn't get to their attic and tear a hole through their own attic. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking just the horror of that process. You're in your home, you're trapped with the water, and you realize the only way to go is up, and you have a sealed roof. Like when I was a kid, I saw the Poseidon Adventure.
Yes.
Remember that story? And the ship gets turned over on its top, and they have to find a way to make it to the bottom of the ship because that's the top now, and then somehow, get through the ship hole. Like,
Yeah.
who the hell does that? But if you got a good weekend, maybe, and some welding. But yeah, what a crazy thing. And you're like, okay, I've got to somehow. What tools do I have? Because I'm not prepared. I got to tear a hole through my roof so that I can sit on my roof. And there are people that I think sat on roofs for a couple days.
They did. And
Yeah,
that blistering heat, it was so
oh,
hot. Oh my God.
the irony of all that water and that heatness spread too, probably. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, a lot of different things that happen, a lot of triumphs of the human spirit, a lot of failures of the human spirit, just the amount of deaths, and you just saw the desperation of the people getting pulled off the roofs, and you're like, God,
Yeah.
imagine being stuck on your roof for 2 or 3 days. You don't know if the water's going to rise above the roof and stuff. You don't know. I mean,
You
you're just sitting
don't.
there on an island, and that's the top of your house, and so I think anybody who had a lot of empathy for other human beings just saw it as a horror show. And we just went, this is America? I thought
Yeah.
we had shit straight. Like we have FEMA and we have all this other stuff. The irony is we don't even really have a good FEMA now in
No.
2025. So God forbid another one of these should happen.
I know. Oh my God. I shudder to think. And one of the things that I didn't learn until years later was that there was this one reporter who was reporting on how all the African Americans from the convention center were looting, and yes, we've all seen them taking big TVs out and all that stuff, when they're angry. And when I say they, I mean anybody, blacks, whites,
Oh,
whoever.
yeah.
But in this instance, there were people going to get formula and
Yeah.
diapers and water. And they weren't showing that. They were just saying, oh, these people are looting. But there were people that were literally going and getting those things and bringing them to the convention center to
Yeah.
save some of those little children. But you didn't see that on television, which is really sad
Yeah.
because they were to the extent that they could. They were trying to help themselves. And I guess for me, they're eventually going to throw all that stuff out anyway. And why not get the National Guard to get in front of those stores and hand things out? It's right there because they never did bring trucks in, so it was just looking at those little babies on TV and the elderly people in those wheelchairs. They didn't live all of their lives a good life to end up like that. It was ridiculously sad.
Yeah. It was really a failure on the U.S. government's part on a massive scale. I believe it transcended to the
Yeah.
voting booth, but I remember the whole experience. I mean, I was glued to the TV. I worked for myself at the time, and so I was watching it on TV at home, and I mean, it was just 24/7 on CNN. I think was back in the day when they ran news that way. And yeah, it's the horror of watching people in the house, people cutting through their own roofs. Then you see a roof that didn't have a hole cut in it, and you're like, wonder if there's anybody in there. And I remember them having to mark the homes that had bodies in them. There's still, according to Google, there are still 652 missing bodies from that storm.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine? I mean, no one knows where they're at. They could be, I mean, imagine the mud that came in was extraordinary. I've been in different floods and stuff, or post floods, and the mud that comes, the dirt that comes, I mean, the stuff that comes into the house.
Yeah.
I remember there was a big Topanga Canyon in California. They try to cut the brush down so that it doesn't catch on fire, or if it catches on fire, there's no brush, and then when the rains come,
Yeah.
everything just turns into landslides and mud. You
Yeah.
can't win in California. It's either fires or mudslides. And so I remember walking through this mud that was like knee deep, and then one of the hills that had been there had been a cemetery, and so people had literally bodies and coffins in their front yard from the mud flow. And I imagine there was a lot of that going on, because I imagine there's cemeteries there's cemeteries in New Orleans, but they're above ground, right? Because of the water.
Yes.
So here now they're getting wet, and probably had some bodies floating around and coffins. It's a little disturbing, let me tell you. When I remember finding a coffin in someone's front yard in Topanga, California during a flood, and I was like, I hope he's still in there. I'm not going over there. That's a coffin. There's somebody who's in control of this, and not to make light of the situation, but yeah, it's a horror show. It's not cool. And so, yeah, I mean, but I remember being like just knee deep in the stuff, and I lost my shoe. That was the problem. I had sneakers on, and they're like, just walk through the knee deep mud. So I did, and like the first step, I lost my shoe, and like that's a real problem when the mud's 2 feet deep. You're like, how do I go back for my shoe? Clearly, we didn't think this thing through properly. But that's why you're supposed to have the government there, like FEMA and stuff that happens. And it's probably a good reminder to, we're going to have an event like this. I think we've had some other scary events, in Houston and Texas, I think. And it seems like these storms just getting bigger. Right now, I live in Utah, and people are losing their crap. I've got to go back and forth between Utah and Vegas, but right now I'm in Utah. People are losing their crap here because there's no snow on the ground. There's there's all these skiers that are coming here, and so our climate is changing. I mean,
I agree.
You can't dispute it. We had a tornado or cyclone or hurricane that came into California from the West Coast. It never happens. It's like 100-year event, and we keep having these 100-year, 200-year, 1,000-year events, and it's really scary. But like right now, we literally have no snow. It's basically like aside from being cold here, it's the summer. And so you have all these skier people that paid for their vacation months ago. Evidently, it's non-refundable between, I don't know if they use points or if they're just non-refundable. So their hotels and their ski trip is non-refundable. So they're just coming, and there's no snow on the ground. They're like literally just like, there's like a little bit of snow, because they have the snowmakers. But it's the weirdest Christmas ever, not having snow.
Oh my God.
And we're just all sitting around going, last night I thought it was going to snow. It started blowing a little bit, and then it disappeared. And so, we gotta, your book's a good example and a reminder that we gotta try and get on these things better. And now that FEMA's been dissolved, I'm hearing that you're hearing about cities now that they can't get their costs covered. They're being just told to F off. No, FEMA's not going to show up. And you're like, okay. We pay taxes to the federal government for this. We we need to look at what we're doing. So it's a good reminder of that. What do you hope people come away with from the books as you read them?
Okay, I've actually I've sold a few copies, and I've asked more than a few. It's actually doing okay, but I've asked people. I said, I really want your honest opinion. What can I do better? What can I improve in it? And they're like, the last person that read it, she's actually in Mexico, and she said the book gave her chills because she was from Louisiana, although she didn't experience Katrina, but just to kind of hear it in the way that I told it, because I start out in the first few chapters talking about how we weren't prepared. I had to give a little sort of synopsis on how we got there. And she said it really gave her chills because of some of the events that occurred. And she said she could see that. But the thing, Chris, more than anything that brings me joy is when I'm talking to someone about the incidences that happened, and for that brief moment in time, they stop and they say, come to think of it, this occurred when I was going through that. And so it kind of gives them a little, rather than just saying, this was a coincidence or whatever, it's like, what, I really did receive grace. I really did receive blessings when I was going through these difficult times with the storm. And it doesn't even have to be with the storm. It's like, my message would be, don't ever feel that hope is not out there, whether it's in the form of a little miracle, whether it's in the form of someone just showing up at your front door. And that's really the message I want to give. Because with everything that my husband and I lost, and my sister, all the materials we lost, we still had each other. We still had family. We got through it. And it's like I say in the book, we are a very resilient city. We've had to be, because we've gone through these things many times over the years. So that's really my message. It's like, whether you're of faith or not is immaterial. But, it's like sometimes we're so quick to believe that miracles occur with other people. And the best example is the miracle on the Hudson. In my mind, that was a miracle. But scientists can say, well, the water was the perfect temperature and the plane landed at the right angle, and they can always make it non-miraculous. You know what I mean? And people could probably do that with some of the stories in my book. But the fact that we're quick to recognize these big magnanimous miracles, but sometimes we don't recognize them for ourselves. It's almost like, do we think we deserve them? And I think everybody does. Everybody deserves the opportunity to know that, in the midst of chaos and pain and whatever, there's some entity, whether you believe in God or the angels. For me, it's my grandmother. She saved me 2 times so far. Whatever you believe, you have to believe in something, because that's what will get you through these moments of hard times and pain.
Hope always sells. It's the enduring point of human beings and what they do. So great uplifting message. Thank you very much, Maria, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Again, it's books by mvdespenza.com. And if you want the shortened version, it's nessasbooks.com. And that's where you'll find me, and any other books that will be coming along down the road. And Chris, thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this for over a month now. You made me very comfortable, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We try and make our guests comfortable, because if we do that, then they usually, they feel like they can express themselves well. As we used to have people come on the show and we terrorize them and play loud noises, and I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. Maybe we used to do that. I don't know. Maybe that's a format for a new show. We terrorize the guest as like we troll the guests. We terrorize them as they try and tell us how great their book is, and they have to overcome that barrier. And then it's kind of like that Hot Wings. You ever seen the Hot Wings YouTube channel where they make the poor actor or musician like eat these hot wings that basically melts their face and tongue off.
Oh my God.
And then they're trying to talk about their acting career and stuff. You know, they're like, so how was it in Iron Eagle 20, the movie? And the actor's like, oh my God, I'm bleeding out my eyes. You're like, well, tell us about the movie, stupid. You know, like we should do one of those podcasts. Make people eat stuff. Or here's an idea. We hooked them up to shock lines we can send across the phone wires, and then we shock them at different times to see if we can get them out of their pitch, their media points. I think we got 1 million. I think people will pay to see this at this point. We have such a sadistic society. I think this is the narcissism win right here.
You're funny.
I don't know. It's right now you're just going in your head like, thank God I got my interview before he starts this shit. He starts this crap. Glad I got in before it got weird. Yeah, there you go. Chris Voss, the Chris Voss Show Podcast. It'll shock you. Just put a battery underneath your feet, and we'll just go full ISIS on you. With, hook them up to some nipples and start torturing people. So what made you write this book, soldier? Anyway, all right. Well, maybe we'll think about that some more, folks. But in the meantime, check out her book wherever fine books are sold, and also refer the show to your family, friends, or relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss. Why is everyone canceling the show now? In appearance, all these cancellations are coming through. They must be listening. He's gonna shock us. He's gonna shock our nipples with a battery. What the hell is going on? Yeah, we'll spray with water first, just like the movies. Anyway, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. Chris Voss on the TikTok and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.